Imagine, just for a second, that we could completely rewrite how we do vocational training in this country. Like, is it actually possible to fuel a booming local economy, create thousands of jobs, and build true community resilience, all without saddling students with massive, crushing debt? I mean, it sounds almost too good to be true, right? But today, we're looking at a fascinating case study that proves there's absolutely a way to do it. Welcome to today's Explainer. We are exploring this incredible intersection between macro-level federal policy and a truly hyper-local success story. Specifically, we're going to see how the U.S. Small Business Administration's core doctrines are being brilliantly put into practice by the Louisville Beauty Academy in Kentucky to create what they call a freedom factory. Okay, let's dive into this. We'll start with the small business engine, check out Kentucky's entrepreneurial landscape, and then look closely at the freedom factory model. From there, we'll run through the economics of beauty, talk about breaking regulatory bottlenecks, and finally wrap up with a national blueprint.
Section 1. The Small Business Engine, Federal Doctrine, and the SBA.
You know, the architectural integrity of the entire American economy really relies on deliberate federal policy. This whole idea crystallized back in 1953. That's when the SBA was created to replace the Anti-Depression Reconstruction Finance Corporation, which had basically gotten completely bogged down by inefficiency. Then, by 1958, the SBA launched the SBIC program to bridge equity gaps. Fast forward all the way to 2026, and the SBA is this permanent cabinet-level guardian of entrepreneurs. I mean, they recently announced $50 million in grants just for Made in America training. They are literally the ultimate backstop for the American dream.
Moving right along to Section 2, Kentucky's entrepreneurial landscape, macro to micro.
So how does this grand federal doctrine actually play out on the ground? Now, what's really interesting about this is when you zoom into Kentucky, a totally staggering reality emerges. 99.3% of all firms in the Commonwealth are small businesses. Let that sink in. They employ over 710,000 people. So when we talk about the Kentucky economy, we are, by definition, talking about small businesses. And when you break all of that down by industry, a really fascinating pattern pops up. Notice the other services category, which includes the beauty industry. With nearly 49,000 establishments, it sits just barely behind construction. It forms an absolutely massive pillar of individual entrepreneurship and community-level economic activity in the state.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Freedom Factory Model, Louisville Beauty Academy.
Right inside that massive other services sector is our hyper-local case study, the Louisville Beauty Academy, or LBA. Let's contrast two vastly different ways of doing things here. On one hand, you have the debt factory. These are your traditional vocational schools relying heavily on Title IV federal aid. They have this structural incentive to just inflate tuition. We're talking charging over $20,000 sometimes, and it leaves students drowning in debt. But then, on the flip side is LBA's Freedom Factory. By intentionally operating entirely outside that Title IV system, they offer a non-extractive, totally debt-free enablement model. They actually give 50 to 75% effort-based discounts for students who simply show up, commit, and put in the hard work. It's a total game changer. And this radically different approach is anchored by a really powerful guiding principle from LBA's founder, D. Tran. He says they choose a poverty of revenue over poverty of students. Just think about that. They are intentionally prioritizing human capital over institutional wealth. The whole thing is built on a trademark psychological infrastructure of Yes, I Can, which is designed specifically to empower working adults, immigrants, and career changers.
Section 4. The economics of beauty, multiplier effects.
So does this feel-good philosophy actually translate into hard dollars? Absolutely, for sure it does. To measure this massive local economic impact, economists use something called the RIMS-2 multiplier formula. It basically calculates how direct spending ripples out into the world. You see, when a single beauty professional gets a job, they don't just earn a wage. They go out and buy supplies, they pay for housing, they buy groceries. Their personal economic footprint literally echoes throughout the entire community.
To translate that complex formula into plain English for a second, the beauty industry has an employment multiplier of approximately 1.64. What that actually means is, for every 10 jobs created by a beauty school like LBA, another 6.4 jobs are supported elsewhere in the local community. The economic energy doesn't just stop at the salon door, it spreads.
Now, let's move along and see how this builds when we apply it to LBA's actual graduate pool. Using the industry sales multiplier of 1.8661, we can calculate the total annual economic activity that's generated by their roughly 2,000 successful graduates. And wow, the result is staggering. Those 2,000 graduates generate approximately $170.6 million in local gross domestic product annually. And because having a professional license fosters income reporting and overall accountability, that translates to an estimated $7.6 million in annual federal and local tax revenue. That right there is the absolute definition of real, small business-led local tax-based growth.
Section 5. Breaking Regulatory Bottlenecks, Advocacy, and Senate Bill 22.
Now, building true economic resilience means dismantling systemic barriers. And LBA identified a huge one, what they called the theory bottleneck. Historically, state board exams used these high-stakes written tests that severely penalized students who had language barriers. You had highly competent professionals who could perfectly demonstrate the practical, hands-on mastery of their trade, but their written exam pass rates trailed their practical scores by nearly 30%. So through some seriously aggressive advocacy, Kentucky passed Senate Bill 22. This brilliantly replaced that punishing system with a retake until mastery approach, totally eliminating those devastating financial penalties for non-native English speakers.
And building on that amazing momentum, by March 2026, Kentucky expanded its beauty licensing exams to be available in 7 languages. I mean, this was a massive game changer. By allowing professionals to test in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, Korean, Khmer, Portuguese, and simplified Chinese, the state essentially unlocked the latent economic potential of its immigrant communities. They brought immense, diverse talent right into the formal taxable economy.
Section 6. A National Blueprint, Scaling the Dream.
When you combine debt-free education, an SBA-aligned philosophy, and aggressive regulatory reform, you create a model the rest of the country simply cannot ignore. LBA was actually the only Kentucky business named to the really prestigious U.S. Chamber CO 100 Awards in 2025, and that's out of over 12,500 businesses. Founder Dai Tran was even named a Most Admired CEO. Plus, the data proves it. LBA's non-Title IV model actually outperforms federally subsidized national chains in school resilience scores. No question about it.
So the crucial point is that this whole thing provides a fully scalable blueprint for policymakers everywhere. First, occupational licensing. When you make it inclusive, isn't a barrier. It's an actual growth engine. Second, small business development is workforce development. I mean, every new beauty license issued is potentially a brand new small business. And third, community resilience is built locally through private nonprofit partnerships. A great example is LBA's initiative of embedding a campus right within a local disability support nonprofit.
The 70-year history of the Small Business Administration proves our nation absolutely thrives when we support independent entrepreneurs. And the Louisville Beauty Academy proves that we can create strong economic citizens without burying them in student loans. Which leaves us with one incredibly vital question. Is the rest of the nation ready to abandon the traditional debt factory and finally embrace the freedom factory model? The blueprint is right here, just waiting to be used. Well, thanks for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this sparks some new ideas for you. See you next time.